Welcome to fourth semester BA English Complementary course in Journalism. Chapter 1 Fundamentals of Communication, Part 5. In this case, in the previous video, we did not mention the functions of sub-editor and responsibilities and other capabilities only discussed in that video, because it was a longer one. That's why I reduced it to a short one, and we will discuss the functions of sub-editor in this class. You know, the sub-editor distributes the copies among the that means each sub-editor distributes the copies among the sub-editors, and the task of sub-editor is to check whether the news story has a news value. So only news valued news only should be printed in the paper. If the copy has no news value, it's worthless. There is nothing to. And after editing the copy, it will check, or he or she will check the grammar mistakes, some redundant expressions, or whatever it may be. The mistakes will be edited or it will be corrected. Then it will go to the newspaper, and it may be checked with the help of computer softwares. Modern softwares are available for spell check and other redundant expressions, and this speeds up the editing process and helps better coordination of the editorial development. The most important task of sub-editor is to make news more meaningful to the readers. That's That means if a language, or normally the reporter will report the sub-editor or gives the news editor the news to news editor, and the polishing of the language, writing headlines or giving some meaningful headlines to this news are normally assigned to this sub-editor. So that's also the function of one of the functions of the sub-editor, and it's also available, or he or she will reduce or it will make it capable for the space allotted or spaces or the layout of the paper, and aimed at making the news stories more readable and appealing to the reading public. Then the sub-editor is described as a diamond cutter. He or she may be like a diamond cutter. That means she will cut the stone or make it polishing, or it is a polishing and make it as a gem. Like that only, when she gets the words, she will make it or polish it and make it more attractive, or it will be created as the most attractive one for reading purpose, and he or she searches for the defects in the copy and meticulously scans the story. Then for the flaws and inaccuracy, everything will be corrected by the sub-editor, and he or she adds some movements, the piece by substituting active verbs for passive ones, and like some other grammar mistakes, or everything will be corrected. And according to Floyd K. Basket, Floyd. Who is Floyd? Floyd. Okay, so according to Floyd K. Basket, just remember like that, Floyd. So basket, two T's are there, basket, not one T. Okay, and others in their work, The Art of Editing. His book's name is Art of Editing. In this book, He mentions that the sub-editor to the super or the sub-editors to the super detectives who consistently search the story for clues that could transform the mediocre piece into an epic. It is according to Floyd's basket. That means sub-editors are like a super detectives because they will search for clues and could transform the word or the mediocre piece into an epic. Understand? That is the word from the Floyd K basket. Next, fifth one is bureau chief. Bureau chief. Bureau chief. Bureau chief. A bureau chief means bureau chief is an office. You know, a bureau means it's an office for gathering or distributing news. That is a bureau. And those who are charged with this bureau is called a bureau chief. And we normally we can hear or we may be very much familiar with the word Kozhikode Bureau, Kochi Bureau, like these words. So the person who is appointed as an or the person who looks after the bureau is called bureau chief, and he or she coordinates the news gathering operations assigned to the bureau and hand over the reports to the news desk. And the editing of the news is done at the desk under the leadership of a news editor. The news editor will conduct or he will do all the things there. A single news company such as Malayalam Manorama, Madhubhumi or whatever it may be, they have single news bureau to look after all the things, that means all the news related to newspaper, television, radio, online media, whatever it may be, only because they wanted to cut the expense. And while the bureau chiefs and efforts editors tend to have the same education and experience, the primary difference between these two types of journalists is that bureau chiefs will be outside of the, or they will be working in a far away from the headquarter or the organization of the organization, and a bureau chief as the head of the reporting team operating outside the newspaper, and while the editors usually work inside, that means work in a workhouse or a working house. That is so a bureau chief may be responsible for one city or district or many cities. Bureau chiefs must curate, report, and first they will select the news from their base or wherever they were assigned to work. Then depending on the size of the paper and the bureau chief might work alone or oversee a staff. There may be one or two staffs normally it will be. Traditional news media, particularly television news channels and newspapers, and the other number and the size of news bureaus, in recent years for several years. So for every channels or every newspapers have the bureau chiefs. According to their capacity, they may be or more bureau chiefs or lesser bureau chiefs. They face declining profitability due to increasing competition from internet news sources, and therefore have less money to spend on news gathering. Now they are, the news will be instant news they will get, or it will be provided by some news agencies. Not direct source, they are using direct source. Many of the papers are depending on the other secondary sources. And next is chief reporter. In the case of chief reporter, chief reporter plays. Sixth one is chief reporter. And this chief reporter is an important news gathering or news reporting, since he or she is charge of all reporters in given edition of newspaper. So chief reporter, he will be the officer or the person who look after all the other reporters, After discussion with the news editor regarding the coverage of the news, the chief reporter allocates assignments to the reporters. So he will give the duties to the reporters and he or she coordinates the news collection team. Understand that? And from many news, hundreds of news, he will decide which is the worthy or which is the news value, which has the news value. And the major responsibility of the chief reporters are, the first one is news hunting. That's we will do here. News hunting. This is the chief reporter, and the first one, news hunting. He must have the sense of hunting the news. Wherever it is that means it may be unexpected one, or news makes plans for special coverage of the news. And the second one is beat management. Beat management. Beat management. In the beat management, chief reporter decides what type of assigned beat is covered on a particular day. On a particular day, which news must collected. It's from the court, it's from the police station, or it's from the any other area. That will decide. Next, the third one, administrative function. Administrative function. In the case of administrative function, and in the administrative function, chief reporter does the work of planning, organizing, staffing and supervising, since he or she is head of the reporting department. So he will look after the office work also, then planning and everything. And next, fourth one is special reporting. Special reporting. Special reporting. That means some depth reporting must need, or they will investigate something. So investigating reporting, then development reporting, crime reporting, and court reporting. Everything will come in this special reporting. Next, fifth one, coordination with the chief and coordination with the chief and executive editor. Executive editor. Executive editor. That means the chief editor, they will hold discussions with the chief and executive editor regarding the coverage of the news. They will decide which one should be covered, or which news should be collected, or whatever it may be. Next, the sixth one is comparative study of competitors. Comparative study of competitors. Comparative study of competitors. Competitors. That means, the chief reporter analyzes the works of the competitors and be aware of their activities. They will discuss their activities. They will discuss or find out who are the competitors of the newspaper. And this comparison with the competitors gives space for further improvement of reporting. And that's all for this class. And we will discuss the next seventh one reporter in the next classes, next video classes. Okay, thank you.